with one simple brushstroke. And a student fully prepared to lead and serve begins with one community pulling together for the benefit of all. One teacher can inspire, one caring adult can support, one idea can change everything. Over the next 5 years, Columbus City Schools is embarking on a path guided by our students and their families.
To our students, you are the reason that we're doing all of this important work. It is important for us that you are successful. Now we're more intentional. Now we're focusing on the priorities that we believe are important for our students right now. Our portrait of a graduate is Columbus City Schools community coming together, stating that these are our hopes and dreams and aspirations for our students. We must put our students out front. They can do it. They have demonstrated across our district and other places that if you provide for them the environment for them to thrive, they can do the unimaginable. Now we have 4 priorities that we are focused on. Columbus City Schools will be whole child focused. And what that means is that we will focus not only just the academic, but also social and emotional well-being of our students. Equitable opportunities for all students in Columbus City Schools means that every student, regardless of your background, will have an opportunity to be successful. Strong learning communities in every region means regardless of where our students go, we have to make sure that our students are learning in 21st century facilities. Authentic engagement is so important. Why? Because we want to make sure that everyone has a voice and that we're intentional of making sure that we are including all stakeholders. In order for these 4 priorities to be realized, it is important that we have a foundational system of support. So there is a role for every one of our employees to play to ensure that we have 21st century classrooms, our students are leading the way, and that portrait of a graduate is realized.
The past 2 years have been incredibly challenging, but we know that as one community, working towards one goal, that we are up to the task at hand. Every journey begins with one step, and our journey begins today.
So we're in this together. Be committed to the next steps with us. We're going to be committed, we're going to be transparent, but together we can be transformational.
You are far smarter than I was when I was your age, and you will be far smarter than any of us ever will be. And this is because your generation is so innovative, so creative, and you understand your role and your civic duty in making our society better.
Senior to sophomore will definitely benefit you in the future, and I am so happy that you guys chose to take your senior year to pack it on with so many college courses. I know it was hard, and you're probably so glad that it's over, but I promise you it was worth it. I was a part of Ohio State's academy, and whenever I had an issue, Miss Raspberry was my first person that I went to.
You know, she is really an amazing person, and she is very passionate about what she does. I couldn't ask for a better support system in this program, and I'm just very thankful for the program and thankful for you too. Thank you.
But most importantly, I now understand that taking a course shouldn't just be about making the A's, but actually learning to love like whatever course you're taking, because that will really pull you through even in the times you don't want to study, or like, I really like this class, so I'm just going to do it anyways.
I actually found myself becoming really complacent in high school classes. It was really easy. There was no studying. It was just do the work and you get an A. So I'm really grateful for this program to allow me to challenge myself and kind of gain back my drive that I had lost and get me to who I am today.
Exposure changes expectations, but experiences changes lives. We always have to make sure that we give our students more and more experiences, taking them onto college campuses. They can do it. Just listen, we have students that are going to be the next scientists, the doctors, the lawyers. You are the next generation that's going to make America great and greater. It's because of you and your foundations that you have here in Columbus City Schools and at the post-secondary schools that you've attended.
I hope that the students feel a sense of accomplishment. I hope they feel proud about what they created. I hope they feel like they, really can do anything.
I want to dance for the rest of my life because I've been doing it up until now, so I still want to do it forever.
You taught me this in Dance 1, that dance is like a universal language.
And over time, I've really realized that my role here has become not necessarily teaching them about the art form of dance, but using dance as a way to understand yourself in the world. And when you understand yourself, then you are able to do more.
So I can say personally, the connection you have with your students and that you want them to do better. You want them to push. You don't want them to fall under any category. You want them to push forward. And her sense of being a community, I'm about to cry. You can really see that. You want to be a community and you push for that. You push for your students so they can have a community. I told you dance ensemble is family. So you push for that. You push for the family. You push for us being together, even though times may be hard, the being there, present in time and space.
Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to our Finance and Appropriations Committee. Today is September 14th, 2022. We will go ahead and get started, albeit we do not have a quorum at this moment. What we'll do is just at least take attendance. We can do that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Ms. Adair?
Present.
Mr. Brown?
I'm here on Zoom.
Chairman Cole?
Present.
Mr. Green? Ms. Johnson? Mr. Jordan? Mr. Miller?
Here.
This time, Chair, we do not have a quorum.
I thank you. But we will proceed and move forward as folks begin to trickle in. We do know that traffic in our great city can be a bit of a challenge at times. Nonetheless, what we will do is forego approval of the minutes at this point in time. Folks can feel free to take a look at them and make any revisions or recommendations you'd like, but we'll forego that for a moment. We can move right into what is going to be a comprehensive meeting today that's walking us through our monthly finance report, and forgive my eyes here. In addition to that, our fund transfer, we'll have a conversation around that. In addition, quarterly update, a budget request, and we will adjourn post those discussions. With that, let's go right into our monthly finance report.
All right. Thank you, Chair Cole. I believe this meeting is being recorded, so at this time I would like to give a shout out to Mr. Bahork, who normally does this financial report. He's my boss, And for the record, I would like to say he's the greatest boss ever. It's now recorded and documented. So when he plays this back, hopefully.
Sycophancy gets you nowhere.
Oh, man. Okay. Not just go straight to the report. So he and I did touch base since he normally does present this. I do have his notes, and I'll try to go through the slides as if he would, with the exception of I will excuse his jokes that he wrote. So, sorry, Stan. So with that, we'll get started here.
And please announce your name again for us.
I apologize. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Terry Addison. I'm the Executive Director of Finance. And so I'm sitting in for the Treasurer, Mr. Behort.
Awesome.
So there we go.
Thank you, Terry.
No worries. So we'll start with the revenues and expenditures, which we now have on our screen. For the month, the revenues in August, we were $18.8 million above planned, and expenditures were $9.8 million under planned. And that the cash balance at the end of August stood at $519 million, which is $37 million above planned. Not written down here, the month of August was normal, according to Mr. Behort. There's nothing that stands out when I go through these reports. Next, we have the revenues in detail here. So that was the higher level. Now we're going to dive into a little deeper here. So the property tax revenue of $74.8 million received this month is $11.5 million above planned. And the state aid is $191,000 under plan this month due to a change into the local government share amount. All other revenues are on the next page. So once again, everything's going according to plan here as far as revenue. Other revenues here. We still haven't received our federal QSCB interest subsidy, so that's the first column there, so that's why nothing's there. He wanted me to share with you that we're about 3 months behind on receiving those. Once we receive those, it will populate here as to the amounts that come in. The other revenues, if you notice the bar there, the blue bar on this screen, is high in the actual amount. So the other revenues, the above plan is $7.6 million. Actually, it's $21.2 million, greater than to year to date. And this is, he wanted me to stress, these are our pilots that came in. Over time, those pilots will be phased out. But for right now, we got a large amount in the month of August, and that's why that blue column there sticks out.
Can you, again, just state that again, that, you know, as a ginger reminder to those watching and
absolutely
to this body here.
Yeah, those
that whole pilots piece.
Yes, over time, those pilots will be phased out. So yes, right now it's showing up as over planned, or actual is over the budgeted amount, but in the future, it's going to drop down to the budget amount, which is very low. So this is an abnormality here. The other financing sources were slightly below plan, which was $71,000, and that was due to a rounding factor of the plan. We were pretty much spot on that far right column under other financing sources. Mr. Behort threw in a new slide this month, which he will be presenting every month. He wanted to detail or even highlight even further the piloting, the $21 million that was on the previous slide, which is currently above plan. And it sticks out there, pilots are the third one down, and that's $20 million of the $21 million total. So that's what he wanted to emphasize on this page. Once those pilots phase out, that's going to be a $20 million drop in this category. Next, we have our expenditures. So that was the revenue side. On the expenditure side, the total expenses of $9.8 million is below plan for the month. That takes the year-to-date variance below plan by $18.8 million. The personnel in here is $6.9 million under plan, and that's taking into account the year-to-date variance, which is $12.9 million below. And the reason for that is we budget our pay months across all 12 months. So that's why when we look at this as a quarterly basis, those 3 pay months will balance out our actuals and budget, actuals versus budget. So right now we haven't hit a 3 pay month. That's why the actuals are below the budget, because we spread that out over all 12 months as opposed to the month that the 3 pays in. So that's the variance there for expenditures. The next page of expenditures. Yep. These are all other categories of purchase services, supplies, capital outlay, and other. Looking here, pretty much the purchase services is under, supplies and materials are under, and capital outlay is over. Planned slightly by $361,000. Once again, all of these figures are going according to plan right now. Last but not least, Mr. Bohork added a page here of actuals for the year last year compared to this year. And on the left side here, we have revenues and expenditures. The orange bar there under FY23, our expenditures were $113 million this year. As compared to last year, that's slightly $5 million above. Last year was $108 million. Once again, there's a variance in the revenues from 397 to 305. We received a little more revenue this year as opposed to last year. And that's all he wanted to really show, that everything is going as expected according to plan year to year as well as month to month. So with that, I believe that is the last slide, and I will be happy to write down any questions that you may have and pass them along to Mr. Bohork if there are any.
Are there any questions at this point? Okay, I just have one, and I think it's more of just a point of reference, illumination, so to speak, is it looks here as if we are flush with cash. Can you explain the term limits on this, the time limits on this? Can you explain, where we actually are in terms of district revenues and, what we can expect in the future? We already mentioned pilots tapering off because of state legislation that did that. But can we, and some of it will be even highlighted. Good afternoon, sir. Some of it will even be highlighted in our ESSER report. But I think it's just important to reiterate that we're on bought time here.
That is correct, Chair Cole. I can speak more to the high level. Of course, Mr. Bohork can get to the details. But just because you may look at a report and say, hey, you got cash in the bank today, there are plans to spend it tomorrow. So, for example, we still have to make payroll. We spend every dollar today, who's going to make payroll tomorrow? And there's other plans. I just picked on payroll as an example. So to your point, for any of those that are looking at these reports and saying, oh, you're flushed with cash, also have to consider the fact, hey, money's encumbered, meaning purchase orders, obligations have been made. They just, on the cash basis, haven't been expended yet.
And can you talk just quickly about how we have to reimburse ourselves to a certain effect as well?
I apologize. I can't.
No worries.
To that.
No worries. We'll let Mr. Bohork do that.
Yes, please. I apologize.
Essentially, I know that because of how we receive certain aspects of certain revenues, certain proceeds, that we encumber costs up front that we then have to pay ourselves back moving ahead in advance.
That is a truth.
So again, just another part of the narrative that this is not a district that is flush with cash. These dollars, as you stated, and I think that word is perfect, encumbered.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I thank you for that report.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
I want to go ahead and we can move forward then to our fund transfer, that discussion on the PI.
Absolutely. Before Mr. Trevino comes to the mic or podium here, just a quick background. Back in February, Mr. Trevino had an excellent PowerPoint and a lengthy conversation about capital projects and the need to continue our capital fund. We, a few years ago, had Operation Fix It. which is a big levy campaign, and we got a lot of things done. Well, since then, operational or maintenance costs continue. They didn't stop once those projects got finished. And one of the things I did want to mention before I turn it over here is this is our foundation of support for the district. So meaning the buildings still must be maintained regardless of, to support, not in regardless of, I take that back, to support the goals and guardrails of the district. So with that, that's the higher level. I'll pass it over to Mr. Trevino to explain a little more. But this ask here that we're actually presenting just to the committee today, but we'll actually be asking the board next week to approve, is a transfer of money from the general fund to the permanent improvement fund to support the ongoing maintenance costs of the district. So with that, that's the higher level. Thank you, Mr. Trevino, for coming today. Please fill in any gaps I may have missed.
Of course. Thank you, Mr. Addison. So yeah, just to kind of back up. So this, I would say this is really, the best way to describe it is a continuation of our life cycle renewal plan. So got that great foundational start with those bond funds that were made available with the 2016 bond issue. We've now spent through all of those funds. We've completed all of those projects. We've also been able to move into additional HVAC work that is wrapping up kind of as we speak. Fortunate to have those ESSER funds to let that work move forward. And so now that we've really started to catch up the very worst of that backlog of those sometimes we call it deferred maintenance, those life cycle renewals, really important to keep that momentum going. And also, we made a very intentional pivot. So much of the work we focused on so far has been very infrastructure focused. And so while it's so important to making sure that we keep our buildings warm, safe, and dry, like those are the words we kind of use when we talk about that very basic foundational work, honestly, it hasn't had the biggest impact in the classroom. Oftentimes, in fact, we'll say it kind of has the reverse. So while we've made classrooms more comfortable with new air conditioning and ventilation, some of the systems are not the prettiest. And so we've not really had the opportunity to make that impact in the classroom. And so a very intentional pivot in this total $40 million request that we made. So we absolutely need to keep that minimum baseline for that infrastructure work. So we should always be doing roof work. We have far too many buildings to not be doing roofs and HVAC projects and asphalt every single year. But now to have a very intentional focus on looking at those aspects that are much more impactful to our students and our staff. So we're starting to look at things like our athletic complexes, looking at our classrooms and the state of those classrooms and making sure that we're starting to update things like tack boards, dry erase boards, flooring, how does it look in that space? Furnishings, what are our students sitting on? What are they writing on? And so it's kind of a little bit of everything, but it's definitely taking that very intentional look at those spaces that we know are going to really impact that educational space for our students and, of course, our staff as well. Hopefully that gives you a good overview of what the plan is for this. The total is about $40 million. The first portion of that was advanced in our FY22 budget so we could get those consultant contracts underway so that we'll be well positioned for summer 2023 work with the remainder of the balance.
Are there any additional questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have, some comments about this. But for that ESSER money, we wouldn't have been able to advance how far we did. And so creating this fund, and just like we still plan to do with a levy, is critical to ensuring that the district maintains and operates the structures that our students are in as their learning communities that you are talking about. I'm excited that this, it's going to be more than just what we keep talking about, the HVAC and roofs. We do now get to start to impact more of that everyday classroom, those spaces that our students are learning and our teachers are working and our staff is working in. And so it's really important. And I just want to thank you, Alex. I want to thank the Treasurer's Office because I know you have been advocates of this. And I know it's not quite the way we wanted to do it, but it does continue to demonstrate the commitment that this district has to our facilities and clearly articulating what the answer is. And that is creating a separate, dedicated capital budget to ensure that our buildings are maintained and our facilities have those life cycle replacements on all fronts. So I want to thank you for your work, your team's work, the treasurer's office, everyone on this, and we will continue to fight and advocate to ensure that the fund or the budget itself continues to have the funds in it to do all the things that we need to do for our students.
Thank you, Madam President. Are there any questions or comments additional? Mr. Jordan, any thoughts?
Nope.
Thank you for making it here.
Yes, I moved down High Street very quickly.
No, hey, listen, I drive High Street quite a bit, and I understand. So with that in mind, I just wanted to just, because she stole my thunder, I really just want to say to you again, thank you for your work, but I want to make sure that moving forward, we have a comprehensive visual, as much of a job as you do in verbally communicating this well. Make sure we have a visual that complements what you're stating to give us a very clear idea of what direction and how this pivot is actually going to work in a way that manifests itself best for children. So I thank you for this, and if there are no questions, we're going to move forward. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right. And Mr. Addis, what we'll also do before we go on to the ESSER fund is we'll go back in the agenda and actually approve the minutes.
Yes, sir.
We're at quorum. So is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and motioned and seconded. We can take a roll call.
Sure. Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
His vote doesn't count.
Okay, I apologize.
It's yes, my vote doesn't count.
Hey, my first rodeo here, so thank
That's
you.
all right.
No problem.
Chair Cole
Yes.
and Mr. Jordan,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir. Now we can move forward in the agenda to our discussion on the quarterly update with ESSER.
But Chair Cole and committee members, I'd like to introduce Ms. Catherine Mosier, who's no stranger to the committee. This is her quarterly update, which she gives over the ESSER funds, and not to steal her thunder, this fall will be our first ending of our first pot of ESSER 1 money. I'll let her describe everything. So we do have 3 pots of ESSER monies, and we asked her today to come to share. She has a PowerPoint of what we're doing with ESSER. So with that, Ms. Mosier, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Yes, I can. Great. We have been talking about ESSER. Terry, is this supposed to move forward?
Sure. I think the technician says just mention next when you would like the next.
Okay. Next, please. So it's hard to believe that we have been talking about ESSER for 18 months now. And as Mr. Addison just shared, ESSER 1 is coming to a close. We are in the process of wrapping up all of the reports and reconciling our expenses there for ESSER 1, moving into ESSER 2. And we have certainly already begun to utilize the funds in ESSER 2. ARP ESSER or ESSER 3, just as a reminder, those funds are available to the district until September of 2024. And I always appreciate the call out that in ESSER 3 or ARP ESSER, at least 20% must be used for learning recovery activities. Now, we will certainly far exceed that 20%, but as I heard you mention just a couple of minutes ago, sometimes folks wonder why funds are being used in a certain way, and just want to make sure that we call out publicly and each time we talk that 20% is required to be used to address learning recovery. Next, please. So not completely aligned with those buckets of ESSER, but to again, give a general overview. So for ESSER 1, our focus was really on health and safety. And you can see some of the major expenditures that came out of ESSER 1. In ESSER 2, we began to return to school. Thankfully, we're in school in person this year and at this time. But ESSER 2 is largely related to our strategies to respond to returning to in-person instruction. We did also, as you've already heard, begin to address HVAC. In ESSER 3, we have both those strategies that focus on student supports, and then also what I phrase as phase 4. I asked that question about when will it end, really as a reminder that there are still a great number of unknowns when it comes to the environment and around the world at this time. And so because of that, it is essential that we maintain some level of flexibility in our spending and planning. Certainly, we will keep in accordance with allowable uses, but certainly if we had set all of these plans in March of 2020, we might have determined a different set of plans than we have now. So next, please. In terms of our categories of spending, these are the 4 major categories. You can see that we are addressing health and safety, meeting student academic needs. That mental health bullet, again, just a reminder, those are services that are provided by a licensed medical professional. And so most of the time when we talk about meeting social emotional needs or general needs of students, those actually fall in bucket 2. The bullet 3 is much more restrictive. And then we do have some operational continuity plans and expenses. Next, please. Thank you. So I mentioned last quarter, but would just call out again that with ARP ESSER, ESSER 3, there is a specific requirement that we seek public comment on needs and on our plans. And so since May of 2021, we have had a survey link on the district website. The URL is listed there. And we do collect feedback. We review that feedback, and you will continue to receive updates at these quarterly meetings about what the public is saying and mentioning on that site. I can assure you that the overwhelming amount of public input in the last month has been around the conditions of buildings, health and safety, appreciation for the HVAC projects that are completed or underway, but certainly drawing lots of attention to needs in buildings, both related to HVAC, but also, as Mr. Addison mentioned, and Alex Trevino as well, other needs in our classrooms, addressing the overall learning conditions and environments in our classrooms. So encourage everyone to take a look at the District ESSER page. It gives ongoing updates about expenditures, plans, and a link to give us feedback on how you think we're doing. Next, please. So in the executive summary, you do see the actual dollars expended, planned for, within each of the categories. I will let you know that these areas that are here on the screen are of specific interest to those at the federal level who first approved the funds, and at the state level as well. They're going to be very interested in what we are doing around summer programs, after school, and the others that you see there on the screen. So when you see, and this relates to your previous comment in the earlier report, when you see dollars available, it does not mean that we just have cash or that we are, I think you used the word flush. The dollars are available. However, we do have specific plans for those funds. And I want to mention just a few of those. So certainly the HVAC work has been spoken of a great deal, but we are also taking additional measures to address health and safety and overall building improvements where allowable across buildings in the district. We are investing in 2 additional health clinics, one to be located at Fort Hays and one to serve the Columbus Global community. We are investing ESSER dollars to complete that work. The state did provide some early funding for that work, but certainly the cost, the construction costs, the workforce costs, supply chain issues have caused the cost of those facilities to increase, and so we will add ESSER dollars to complete that work. We have a school counselor full-time in every Columbus City school. That was not the case prior to the pandemic. And certainly the pandemic has brought to light and exacerbated the needs of our students. Prior to the pandemic, most elementary schools shared a counselor. The counselor would go from building to building and maybe be at the elementary 1 or 2 days a week. The work that is now being done to address the needs of students in every school as a result of having that full-time school counselor, we are seeing those results already. We are investing in additional school social workers and school psychologists as well. Technology. We have a Chromebook inventory that's underway right now, and cases are being added to the Chromebooks. I hear from, you're nodding your head, we're glad. We're glad to be putting cases on the Chromebooks. We believe that that will extend the life of the Chromebook. But we are also finding through that inventory that if a device is broken or needs to be updated, that technicians are available to make those repairs. So cases, it's a big one. We have over 8,000 hotspots in use, and we continue to need additional funds to supplement the hotspots that we have available to ensure that the student not only has the device, but has access to the Wi-Fi. And so that continues to be a large investment. Additionally, we are adding other classroom technology. We have recently added clear touch screens in a number of our classrooms in looking at the impact that that makes. We are almost ready to talk in detail about a comprehensive literacy strategy that aligns to the board goals and guardrails, and that will include community-based extended day intervention. So when we talk about planned for, that's in the plan, Additionally, we know that that full-time school counselor is making an impact, but we know that we need a district-wide SEL strategy or set of strategies, and we will be investing ESSER dollars to make sure that we not only land on the right strategy, but that we fund the implementation of that strategy. Summer programs. We have certainly offered summer programs. We will be expanding those over the next 2 summers to ensure that we address not only learning loss, but also enrichment to ensure that we keep students engaged. I call out 2 specific partners, Communities in Schools and City Year. Those programs in the schools where they serve are being supplemented for the next 2 years with ESSER dollars. As all organizations, they have seen increased personnel costs as well. We believe in that investment and are using ESSER to supplement. 2 other pieces. We are partnering with local universities to help us research the impact of our investments and to make independent recommendations as far as work that we would carry forward using ESSER dollars. And in addition, we know that our personnel costs continue to increase, in where allowable, we are providing some retention and recruitment funds to support. So next slide, please. I had mentioned previously, but certainly encourage you and those listening to this presentation to take a look at the ESSER webpage on the district website. Again, there's a link there. It takes you right to the live page that does go into additional information about our strategies, and we update it regularly so that the public can view the rate at which we're spending and the dollars that are left to use. So again, ESSER 1 is wrapping up. Final slide, please. ESSER 1 is wrapping up. We'll be doing all of that reporting by the end of this month. ESSER 2 is available through next September, and then ESSER 3 will take us into September of 2024. And with that, I would answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mosier, for your presentation. Are there any questions?
Just to make
I've
sure.
got one.
All right, we'll go with Mr. Jordan first, and we'll go with you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Just to make sure, ESSER 1's period of performance is July 1 to September 3rd, so it's a 15-month deal, right?
That is correct, yes.
And it's the normal federal rule obligations where you have to obligate it by September 30th and liquidate it out by...
No, actually, it's obligated, please correct me, obligated by June 30th.
And then liquidated by September 30th.
Correct, so
Got
that's
it.
our liquidation period.
And then the ESSER 2 looks like it follows the little longer, a little more normal periods.
It continues all the way till
It's got another
June
year.
30th of next year.
It has another year to make obligations and
That is correct.
liquidate it.
June 30th to 2023 is the obligation period for that one.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Great question.
Any additional questions? Mr. Brown, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Catherine, appreciate the presentation and the work. I understand that there are some or perhaps many local governments that are having some difficulty finding worthwhile uses for all of the ESSER funds. And they may not, some of them may not be able to use all the funds that were available, and I guess they'll simply go unused. Is there any sense that we are not going to be able to put all ESSER funds to good use?
No, I have no concern about that. In fact, what I believe ESSER has actually allowed us to do is to demonstrate what it costs to properly educate students in Columbus City Schools. because we have been able to use ESSER in some categories and to help support some initiatives, we have actually been able to make more academic impact with our Title I dollars than we had previously. So every school in the district has a full-time instructional coach this year, paid out of ESSER. That means that about 30 schools in the district that previously never had an instructional coach because they couldn't afford it, because we typically fund those positions out of Title I, and they didn't have a population and a Title I allocation to support that work, now can move forward, improve instruction in classrooms, better meet the needs of students, because we are able to use ESSER for that position. So we are doubling down on interventions, and we have an intervention in reading paid for out of Title I in elementary schools. We have a very specific strategy around intervention for math in middle schools. We didn't forget the reading. We have a reading intervention also, but we could never afford a math intervention before because we had to use our Title I dollars to pay for instructional coaches and in professional development for teachers. And then at the high school, we have an opportunity to provide an intervention strategy around matriculation that we've wanted and needed, but could not provide before. If we did not have ESSER, we could not provide those additional intervention strategies. So no, I'm not concerned that we will not spend the dollars and that we will not spend them properly. What I think we will actually do is have the evidence to show that at the end of ESSER, we're going to need additional funding to support and meet the needs of students. Now, having said that, I do believe, and we've certainly committed to the initial part of this strategy all along, is that we should use this opportunity to leverage our ESSER dollars to address things that we never could use federal funds for before, such as HVAC and health and safety, remediating health and safety conditions in buildings. So no, I'm not worried that we're not going to spend the money and spend it properly. And in fact, if our community partners and organizations don't think they can spend it all, come talk to us because we are certainly interested in continuing to help find ways to align our partner strategies to our district goals and guardrails.
Thank you, Catherine. Are there any additional questions?
I appreciate that. Just one follow-up to that, and that is sort of the flip side, which is, are we keeping close track of the things that we are spending this one-time money on that we will have to carefully review at the end of the ESSER dollars to determine what additional operating money is needed to continue some of those things we start. I'm guessing that a substantial or very substantial portion of the funds is going to one-time purchases or expenditures. But for those things that will continue, are we carefully tracking and planning for what happens when the ESSER dollars are no longer there?
Yes, Mr. Brown, I'm going to jump in here and step on Catherine's toes, not intentionally here, but to answer your question, absolutely we're tracking those and we're conscious of the one-time expenditures as well as which ones will continue. And conversations that I've been having between Catherine, myself, and Mr. Bahork, the treasurer, is yes, we're looking at how is this going to impact the 5-year forecast. So I'm going to steal some of Stan's thunder. Is he's going to start presenting that in the upcoming forecast as to start looking at some of those items that will roll over into the general fund, but after many conversations prior to that. So we are tracking that, we are looking at that, and we are very conscious of how that's going to impact the district well beyond ESSER.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. Are there any additional questions or comments? All right. Given that there aren't any, thank you so much for this presentation. We look forward to what's more to come moving ahead, and how we're not only leveraging these dollars in these new pivoted ways that both of you have discussed, but also on how we're going to continue to try and impact in-class instruction and student outcomes in the process. So thank you. I look forward to hearing more on that return on investment.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. With that, we can move forward to our budget request.
Yes, Chair Cole and committee members. The budget request here is we're asking, or will be asking next week at the board meeting, for the board to approve an increase of appropriations, specifically in our career technical and education area. And the reason for the increase is because we are aligning our records to the new guidance that's been put out by the Ohio Department of Education. And those guidances is that they fund us with restricted funding, meaning, hey, we're going to give each district a certain dollar amount to be spent in these areas. We're aligning our records here to show that, hey, we've set aside this amount and we are spending in these categories. So this is more of a paper or on the books accounting thing that we're asking for here, and that is to increase the appropriations for the career tech department based on ODE's guidance to match what they're asking us to do, and so we can fulfill their guidance.
Okay, thank you. This is a reconciliation for all intents and purposes.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. I thank you very kindly for that. This is not necessarily something we need to vote on, but this will, of course, go before the board for deliberation and subsequent vote.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
All right. So thank you for that. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And I'll second.
All right. It's been motioned and seconded. If there aren't any questions or any issues, I will accept that adjournment. Thank you all for coming down. Thank you all again for your participation in our work. It is an important one. We look forward to, again, what's more to come, not only just for this committee, but how we're seeing how this committee is going to impact student outcomes. So thank you. Be well.